Tennessee Life is supported through the financial support of viewers like you. Thank you. Coming up on this 1982 edition of Tennessee Life. It takes a lot for a scruffy little city to host a World's Fair, but the city of Knoxville found a way.
I said, well, I'll commit to 6 weeks of consulting just to set up the office and set up, let's get it started. And that 6 weeks turned into 7 years.
Host Vickie Lawson sits down with former Mayor Randy Tyree to get his perspective on what lessons the fair's 11 million visitors learned.
We never lost sight of keeping our eye on the ball, and we never lost our sense of humor. We're a get her done kind of community.
An event like this creates memories that last a lifetime, and Chris Ford has spent years rounding up the fair's most beloved keepsakes.
They slapped that logo on anything and everything, and there's no like common thread through it all, right? Tons of different manufacturers, local pottery. It was like anybody could just throw it on something.
Those stories next on Tennessee Life.
Thanks for joining us for this World's Fair edition of Tennessee Life. I'm Vickie Lawson. Between May and October in 1982, Knoxville hosted 22 countries and 11 million visitors. We traveled to Nashville to meet up with Beau Roberts and find out how a World's Fair comes to life.
The World's Fair is a special event. And in the World's Fair's case, I think the goal of the Bureau of International Expositions is to bring people together. People are going to be exposed to things that otherwise they wouldn't, and to ideas and cultures. And so it's learning that people are different, but they can get along. And there are 11 million opportunities for people to have their impressions, their moments there. My name is Beau Roberts, and I was president and CEO of the Knoxville International Energy Exposition, better known as the 1982 World's Fair. Previously, I'd been working as a vice president at the University of Tennessee, doing external affairs and a lot of different things. Prior to that, I was in a governor's cabinet, a chief of staff, Governor Ellington. So I'd had some experience in public activities and had been involved in politics in a governor's race.
And president of the 1982 World's Fair, ladies and gentlemen, S.H. Roberts, Jr., better known to Knoxvillians and to his friends as Beau.
I was employee number 1, city government, Chamber of Commerce, TVA, University of Tennessee, Oak Ridge National Lab, and different officials were working with the Department of Commerce on starting a World's Fair in Knoxville, originally in 1980. And at some point, the Department of Commerce said, hey, we need kind of a central point of communication. We can't communicate with everybody and get everybody's different answers, so they need to set up. So they set up the nonprofit corporation, came and talked with me about the possibility of heading it up, and I said, well, I'll commit to 6 weeks of consulting just to set up the office and set up, let's get it started. And that 6 weeks turned into 7 years.
Not too many cities can boast that they have hosted the world, but Knoxville is doing just that.
There's a Bureau of International Expositions headquartered in Paris. They sanction or don't sanction World's Fairs or international exhibitions, as they're officially called. The last one they had in the United States was in 1974 in Spokane, Washington. Stuart Evans, who was executive director of the Downtown Knoxville Association, was the originator. He had the original idea. He had attended the Spokane exhibition, got to know their executive of the downtown and then their executive of the World's Fair. And Stuart came back to Knoxville and said, they can do it in Spokane, we can certainly do it in Knoxville. And from there, the little kernel developed into quite a show.
And now, for the 1982 World's Fair, Knoxville, Tennessee.
We chose one of the hardest parts in town. I called it the armpit between UT and Fort Sanders and downtown Knoxville. It was abandoned railroad yards. Southern had one freight train a day that came through. That was a determination that If we could take that land, it was 74 acres, leave it in a position where it would be productive and attractive afterward, that was the goal. I don't know if it's quite a year, but several months later, when all of a sudden we started doing the buildings and the steel began coming out of the ground where people could see it. And I think in that, a lot of ways, that's when it became real to people. Oh my God, there is going to be something there, you know. Well, the World's Fair opened on May 1, Saturday, 1982. It was a good full day. It was a wonderful day. It was in some ways a, oh my God, we did it day, you know, and is this really happening? This is really happening. You know, it's my, oh my goodness, you know, and every emotion one could think of. Thankfulness, joy, relief.
I would like to add my welcome to Jake's. You know, in many ways, Knoxville has waited a lifetime to arrive at this crossroads.
The ceremony was set for 11 o'clock on Saturday. Dinah Shore, a famed Tennessee singer, was our mistress of ceremonies during that event. And the ceremonies lasted less than an hour, I'm pretty sure. The president spoke for about 10, 15 minutes, something like that.
As we pool knowledge and resources here in Knoxville, our cooperation will become the keystone of a more peaceful and a stable world. And now, I'm looking forward to seeing something of this exposition. Thank you all. Have a good time and God bless you.
The actual name of the thing was Energy Turns the World. All the countries that were exhibiting was something related to energy, but also their culture. All of them had national days. Some of them were national weeks. You know, we would stretch out events over a week-long period. China was the anchor tenant and had a wonderful exhibit. We were able to get them bring actual bricks from the Great Wall. They had just discovered the terracotta soldiers and bring a couple of those actual ones over here to exhibit. My office was, during the fair, was at the L&N station overlooking the site. And by 10:30, however long the line was to get in the Chinese pavilion, I could guess within 2,000 or 3,000 what the attendance was going to be that day. The average is 63,000 a day. We had a low of just over 43,000 one day. It was our lowest day. And our highest day was over 100,000. And we had a lot of 80 and 90,000 days, you know, on 12 hours on site. The only Eastern European country we had was Hungary. Their exhibit, which is quite interesting, was a big rotating Rubik's Cube, and their energy theme was the human energy of genius. And young Dr. Rubik, who invented the cube, came to Knoxville, actually got kids from Oak Ridge and other places to come over, sit down and play against him on the Rubik's Cube. Australians, again, had several things to display about their energy, but also they wanted to display who they were down under. And they actually ran a pub, and they were voted by our staff as the best partiers of the World's Fair. So the after-hours parties usually ended up at an Australia pavilion.
G'day, sir. You having a good day? Yes, sir. Go and have a beer. Good for you. And you never know who you'll see entertaining here at the Down Under Club.
One of the things that always brought a smile to my face, the Energy Express, a little energy train that ran through, that had its own music. Some of the entertainers that I got to spend time with, Bob Hope, Kenny Rogers, Johnny Cash gave a concert. Everybody has their favorite moments. I have so many, it's hard to narrow them down. But usually, quite often, it's the little things that I remember. During the Great Britain Week, they brought over the London Symphony to give a performance in the auditorium. And out in front of the auditorium, where the London Symphony was performing, I saw people scalping tickets. And I thought, wait a minute, in Knoxville, Tennessee, it was a beautiful day. I remember that, October 31st. It's the only day I violated by using my office to go around back and get special treatment, because I had to have a Petros on closing day. This closing ceremony was something staff had been working on for quite some time, and it was joyful. wasn't a time of, oh, boo-hoo, it's over. It's, ha-ha, we did it. and a little bit of accomplishment, you know. There's a picture that myself and Randy Tyree and Jake Butcher among making the toast, and there's a pretty good expression of accomplishment on that picture. It wasn't gloating, it was just feeling, by golly, we did it.
And on behalf of all of you, I officially declare that first, the 19 World's Fair is complete and is closed.
And so my final act was to declare it closed. I said I declare it complete, and that was the final. And the fireworks after that. So that was it. I felt we finished and it was complete, as opposed to we're closing the doors. That makes sense.
Let's all stand. Hopefully the champagne has been around. And let us drink to the future, to the World's Fair, and to Knoxville. Prost, salute, kampai, gambe, egashigedra, and cheers.
And I think we had a very successful 184 days of enjoyment. And I still remember looking at the faces of the people watching the fireworks at the close, or watching the Energy Express wind its way through, or the parades that we had every day, or the shows at the amphitheater.
Everybody's going home. It has been a fantastic celebration.
Well, if I had one thing I want people to remember, is the good things. The joy that was there, the unity was there, the bipartisanship that was there, the fun that was there. I think the accomplishments that were there. I'm proud of what our city, Knoxville, and our state, Tennessee, accomplished. And I'm proud of the people who made that happen.
Later on Tennessee Life, meet the man who helped revitalize the World's Fair iconic logo.
Once Sweet Peas opened and we started getting popular, you know, our first restaurant, I'd hung some fair memorabilia, and it was our decor. And as soon as we did that, you know, old timers started coming out of the woodwork, bringing boxes down. You know, how much would you give me for this? Trade me for a barbecue plate.
But first, Randy Tyree gives insight on how a World's Fair can leave a lasting impression on a city and its people.
Randy Tyree had no clue when he was elected mayor that one day his city would host a World's Fair. I sat down with Mr. Tyree to ask when the proposal for this event first came across his desk.
That was in January of 1976. There had been a movement about trying to save the downtown. The adage was that if the last business on Gay Street turned the lights out. But it was a breath of fresh air when this idea came in about a redevelopment. The incumbent mayor was Kyle Testerman. To his credit, he appointed a feasibility study. What the prevailing issue was what in the world are we going to do with that rail yard down there that's in the process of generating a demise. So we wind up moving forward, and as they say, if you think you can do something, there's no shame in trying and failure. But we tried and succeeded.
What was the most exciting thing about planning the World's Fair for you?
Seeing the political unity that came, because we walked through 3 different presidents, President Ford, President Carter, and President Reagan. We had 2 different governors that was involved, one Democrat, one Republican. So to me, just the ability of partisan politics not to enter into the process at all. It did limit it perhaps in some ways, but it never affected outcome. And it was always, let's do what's right. As Brother Farragut said, damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead.
Did you run into any political situations that really was a hindrance?
The one situation that I referenced was the loss of the U.S. Pavilion by a senator out west that for whatever reason did not want to see another $10 million spent on the pavilion to acclimatize it. So as a result of that, we wound up losing imploding the pavilion. But the good news is we got a heck of a World's Fair park down there and a convention center that's second to none.
Why do you see protecting the amphitheater and the Sun Sphere as a high priority?
Those were the proverbial keepers. They were new, and they had to do with the sense of what could be utilized post-fair, and particularly when we lost the U.S. Pavilion. But to our credit, we always would react. If we had a problem with something, we would react by solving the problem, and by on those two items, they are being actively utilized to this day, and will continue to be.
Which country was your favorite to learn from?
That would be hard to. There was 21 countries, I believe. I really liked the ecumenical aspect of it because it was pretty exciting when they unwrapped that mummy, and that was historical in a sense. So culturally, educationally, it was hard to pick one in particular, but there weren't any bad ones there. I'll put it like that.
What do you think Knoxville gained the most from hosting the World's Fair?
One word. Unity. It permeated the whole community. We just showed some folks that there might be some good, bad, and ugly in the mix, but there's more good than anything.
What would you describe as the good, the bad, and the ugly?
The bad was having to contend with the naysayers, making fun of us, etc. That was the bad. The good was the unity that came from a successful event. Really was unprecedented in success. And I jokingly said that the ugly had to be seeing my members of city council do the chicken dance down at on the World's Fair site. So we never lost sight of keeping our eye on the ball, and we never lost our sense of humor. We're a get her done kind of community.
In your career, did you ever expect to be a part of something like this?
Not really. I was such an underdog mayor. It was a transitional time. I just remember thinking, there's a reason I'm here. I shouldn't be by all political wisdom. But since I am, I'm going to make the best of it. So I could not have imagined in 1975, when I got elected, what I would ultimately wind up being a part of. And it's been a heck of a ride.
We're on the scoreboard, and we have been able to say to the world, don't ever doubt us in East Tennessee. Don't ever doubt us in Knoxville, and don't ever doubt us in the state of Tennessee. Thank you.
Randy, I want to thank you for not only being the former mayor of Knoxville, but being mayor during such an important time during the World's Fair. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and I'm always, PBS is my favorite.
Thank you. What do barbecue and copyright law have in common? Chris Ford, the local restaurant owner and World's Fair fan, tells us how he came to own the trademark of this iconic logo.
This is Knoxville, a town that truly offers something for everyone. Consider this your personal invitation to stay a while and get to know us.
I was 10 years old in 1982 when the fair opened. Spent 6 months, going there on and off, loving every minute of it. Some of my favorite highlights, of course, as a 10-year-old was the Midway, where they had the world's tallest Ferris wheel at the time. Certainly the Stroh House, my parents had met in Germany, so we spent a lot of time there. The arcade, which in 1982 was pretty cutting edge. They just had new stuff that you'd never seen before and things you never saw again. My name is Chris Ford. I am the owner of the trademark from the 1982 World's Fair. So sometime in my 20s, nobody ever talked about the fair. It was like it didn't happen after, a while. And I think the 20th anniversary was coming up. So we printed a bunch of shirts to sell. And so when we started with the t-shirts, that's what me and my buddies were all about. Like, those t-shirts need to be out there because, you find these t-shirts, and I don't know what was going on in the 80s if people were tiny, but a large t-shirt from 82, I don't know who this man is, but, it fits me like a child's shirt. So, getting into some normal sizes because, yeah, they're great shirts. They made great colors, the ringer tees. And then at some point, it came up, are we doing this legally? Is anybody going to come after us? No one did. By the 25th anniversary, we got a lawyer. And that's when we found out that it was just a trademark that just was out there, And all you had to do was get a lawyer and pay for the rights to it. And then fast forward, 5 more years or so, I owned a barbecue restaurant. And I just thought the flame would be perfect to integrate into my logo and because it was so Knoxville centric. So at that point, I bought my guys out and then I bought the usage for things other than just t-shirts. Once Sweet Peas opened and we started getting popular, our first restaurant, I'd hung some fair memorabilia and it was our decor. And as soon as we did that, old timers started coming out of the woodwork, bringing boxes down. How much would you give me for this? Trade me for a barbecue plate. Can we do some catering? And then I really started getting into it and it just came to me. I didn't even have to go look for it. And then, you get a box and it'd be a lot of junk, but then you'd find something really cool. So I just never said no. And then we opened our second restaurant downtown, which was right underneath the Sun Sphere, more or less. And that's when it was like, okay, we've got a lot of stuff. Let's make it a full-blown museum. So now I had 2 restaurants with fair stuff. And then it got to the point, what am I doing with all this? They slapped that on anything and everything, and there's no common thread through it all, right? Tons of different manufacturers, local pottery. It was like anybody could just throw it on something, and I've never really got any answers about that, like how that worked. But some of my favorite things, like that I've kept at the house, and there's a great coffee table book. It's got it gold embossed. It was made after the fact, I guess, all black and white photos. There's some great glass sets out there, some really great juice glass sets. There's some really rare Sun Sphere models, lots of cheap and crappy ones, but some really nice porcelain heavy duty ones that I like that are numbered. Christmas ornaments. Man, they made some banging Christmas ornaments. So much glassware, so much china, so much, anything you could put, creamers, I mean, it didn't stop. Salt and pepper shakers, it's crazy. And this is iconic, everybody's seen it, but I still love it. The panoramic, you'd never really seen a panoramic photo, and they made a panoramic prints of the whole fair, which I love that. Stumbling on stuff like that. And then some great pottery, like local pottery that's got it on there. I have a mug, it's my favorite mug, that I use every day. My thought was, some of these people, especially the age group, at the time, they were thinking this stuff was going to be worth something. That's all I could think. We're going to sit on this, and then inevitably it wasn't, and they wanted to unload it. What is nice, though, is that when something like this comes along, we partnered with Bliss downtown, and we have a pop-up store, and I'm really kind of unloading a lot of it, and because it's fun. We're not making a lot of money off of it, but it's a great way to engage with the community and to revisit some of our history. You know what I mean? So I probably will still buy some, especially after I get rid of all this. I gotta save up for the 50th.
The world, challenging us to be more, to know more, to do more.
Another reason I kind of got into it, not that it's funny, but it is, the history of world expositions. You're talking about the Space Needle, the Eiffel Tower, the Chicago, the White City. I mean, all these amazing things that in history we look at, and then there's Knoxville, with the Sun Sphere. And so, yeah, it's I'm certainly proud of it.
And they called it the World's Fair.
To me, the legacy would be the infrastructure we got downtown. You know, hindsight being 2020. You know, I was just at a concert on the lawn this weekend, and it looks great. And that having that space, you know, because before the fair, you know, you just had all those train tracks and just unusable space. And because of the fair, we have that now, and I think that's a great legacy. Historically speaking, you know, we got on The Simpsons. That's a cool legacy. I mean, who beat that? Knoxville has a lot to offer. It still does. You know, it's only become a better city. You know, from 1990 to now, it's amazing how far we've come and what you can do. You know what I mean? Be it drawing attractions here or just knowing that the world will come if you build it.
I guess you just had to be there. I'm Vickie Lawson. See you on the next Tennessee Live.
We want to hear about your Tennessee life. If you know of a person or story you would like to see featured on this program, please write to the address on the screen.